Welcome to the Unasked critic, the show where I take you through the Instagram Warhammer community and just pick out some sweet miniatures that I think could be improved upon. So, today I picked something nice from Demon Forge Painting here, and I hope you're a good sport about it. Just take this as the fun it is intended to be, and don't be sour about what I say. I know everything I'm talking about is artistic choice, and everybody of us just likes to paint his minis in his way. I'm just trying to be of some help maybe, and I really want to see if people take something out of it, and what they do with it, of course. Come back to me if you see this and learn something from it, or if you didn't, or just didn't approve that I did this at all. Hit me up too. So what I'm doing here, I'm painting some midtones into the armor. We're painting with the armor. I'm showing you the parts I'm working on, so it's more easy to focus on what I'm doing here. I sped these videos up. So what I did here is just edge highlight and go from midtone to lighter tone on the edges up to white, but just in some spots, like right on the corners here. And I will do the same on the left side, just putting in some more shadows to push the contrast more of the edges that I will just use to highlight. And then just again touching up some simple spots. You can just tip that with the tip of the brush over the side, just make nice edge highlighting. Not through the whole thing with the lightest color. Just make sure that in every armor part, if you can, you go from the tone up to your highest part if it's supposed to be a metal or shiny object. So I totally forget to make the recess shades on the right part of the leg, but I will do that later in the video actually. So what I did then is clean up the hand a little bit and keep working on the metal parts of the hand and the knee part, just to make them shiny a little bit, edge highlight them, take them out of this dark black, which could be an effect of the photo and how much shadows you pushed with the photo app. But I don't know, like on this picture, I'm just critiquing out of this picture. Obviously this is not 100%, I didn't see the miniature, so I don't know how it looks. But I would like to see them, the metals a little bit more pushed out, even in the dark. A nice edge highlight can just bring spaces apart and just define the miniature a lot more and make it more readable to the eye. So let's come to the backpack. This is like the highlight of the miniature in my eyes. I really respect going for 3 different colors here. What I would do to make them not look so opaque and just a little bit more effectful is to make these cylinders or tanks half full. That's what I'm doing right here. I take a really dark color of the same tone that Demon Forge did use through every of the tanks, and just take them down from the top to the middle, then just leaving a little bit of the mid-tone in the middle, then coming in with a white highlight or almost white. Obviously it's in that color range. Never use a pure white highlight. Please, 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 like at least do a little drop of color in there. And I'm just trying to make it seem like these fluids inside there are moving a little bit. That's why I curved the lines of the highlights. And yes, you can easily do that with a brush too. Just adding in some white. You can go for opaque colors. And I added in some highlights on the left parts of each cylinder and on the right upper parts. You can see that, just to make it more of a glass object and a round object. And I did the same for the blue cylinder, and just again going for a little bit less of a liquid inside of there, adding the highlights almost the same as on the other two to make it more readable, and I think that pushes it a lot more and makes it more interesting. The tubes, I don't know if they are supposed to be like shiny or like emitting light. If so, I'm just messing them up, but I'm just shading them a little bit like differently than they are supposed to be shaded, because I use a little bit of a white brush in the beginning, and I'm just toning them back, getting rid of some of the confusion that was going on there. There were a lot of stipples inside there. I would always encourage you to go for a more cleaner mid-tone in the beginning. From there, do the recess shading, then clean that up if you have to, and then go to the highlights like I do here. I just would use a brush here and stipple a little bit onto these ribs, just to make it seem a little bit more rounded and give them a little bit more highlights. And that's about it for the backpack here. Then I go to the cape. There are some shiny, or it seems shiny, black parts. Maybe that's part of the shading and the lighting that you did. But I'm not a big fan of using straight up black into another color as a shading. You can do that as a recess shade, as maybe a second pass in some really dark parts, but I would never use it on a textured cloth like a cape, where even if the cloth is really heavy, a little bit of light would shine through. So what I'm doing right here, I'm exchanging the deepest shadows, not for black, but for the same tone of the cape, just darker. And then just going in with a mid-tone again, turning them a little bit back again, working out some of the shapes of the cape. Maybe I destroyed some of them by painting over them. If somebody points that out, I'm really, really sorry, but it's just not 100% perfect when I paint this on the iPad. So yeah, and then I just try to see where the light would hit and just take the shadow away from the parts where the light would hit from above and from the sides, and where it would shine through the cloth. And just take these parts up a bit, even in the front, like you see here in the darkest parts down there in the front part of the cape. And because the light would bend around the most outside parts of the cloth. Yeah, and I'm just adding some more highlights just to make it more interesting and seem it more seemingly going into the whole look that I'm going for here. I'm making it a little bit more cartoony, I think. But I hope that's okay with you, Demon Forge. So I think the cave is coming along nicely. I'm adding some more shadows because I think the shadows, I did work them back a little bit too much. You could go for a different color there, but I just decided to keep it quite simple for now and just shade it in a little bit more in the dark purple. So I didn't know what that on the arm was. I thought it might be eyes because it looks like faces on there. I'm quite sure it is eyes. So I'm just adding a little bit more of color into that white. It just looked a little bit like it popped off too much from the miniature. So I'm just turning down the light a little bit and making it pop more by adding a little bit more recessed shadows there around the eyes, even adding in a little bit of red around them and orange, and then just setting in the pupil with off black. That doesn't make sense, but with a really dark brown I did use here. Never just hit the middle. You don't have to hit them perfectly. You see, like I did here, it doesn't matter in this skull. So for the arm part, or for the tentacle, I just tried to get rid a little bit of the shine. I know that was most likely created by the blood effect that you used. I just like, after turning in the blood effect, I would use a matte varnish above that, just to bring it in with the miniature a little bit more, and maybe even brush it above some parts. What I'm doing here, I'm shading in the downward parts of the tentacle just to give it more volume and to make the lighter parts pop more. Then I add some pinks, purples, and you will see me going a little bit crazy about the colors here, even adding in some greens, oranges, even go for a little bit of blue and green, yeah. Then you will see I'm just having a little bit more fun, making it interesting to the eye. This is a gory part. It is supposed to be a little bit comic-y, but gory, but also dark, but we can, have fun with it still, and then push our highlights a little bit more there, and then I work in some different colors into the shades. I think it's always nice to work from a black, if you ask me, not from a white, because it's easier to hit the recessed shadows. I did a little bit of recessed shadowing right in front of the claws, where they come out of the flesh, and I will highlight them in a minute, so the claws will even pop a little bit more, especially here on this black perfect background. Yeah, then just toning back a little bit on what I did right there on the tentacle, and trying to add some more interest to it by upping the contrast and introducing some shadows right where it's separated from the hand, for example, and then I'm doing the claws right there, as I just told you. And I think right here I took a pause and was like, oh, okay, what am I trying to do next? But I decided it was time to do a little bit more interest parts on the tentacles and on the shoulder, and just introducing some more color and gory bits to the tentacle. What I'm doing here is these half and a bit circles with the highlight, and then some really dark shadowy colors points in there, and 1 or 2 points around these, just to add a little bit more texture and make the piece look a little bit different. When you look at it, it just looked a little bit like off to me. But now that it doesn't shine so much anymore, it needed a little bit more interest to it, so we just added that. Then I introduced some colors into the shades of the shoulder. Again, going for some pink and some purples. I always like to use the same base colors or shadow colors to work off from in the whole piece, just to bind it together more. Normally I would go for the trousers and the backpack also and add a little bit of dark purple into the recessed shading and into the shaded parts. And if you can hear something in the background, it's definitely not my dog. That's the last person I've shown one of my videos. They fell asleep here and have been laying here since, so don't mind them. Then I go back to the backpack, just adding some more interest into the metal. I think this is totally fine actually if you look at it. I'm just upping the contrast by doing some edge highlighting again and hitting some of the corners with a brighter highlight to separate the parts from each other even more than they already are, and to make it fit the rest of the style that I introduced over the armor and the cape to the miniature. Then I'm toning back a little bit of the shadows in the, because I didn't think that this raised object of skull should be so much in depth. And then I just added some highlights onto these access holes down there, and that's almost it for the backpack. Yeah, I'm playing a little bit more around with some of the highlights here, pushing them even more. And then I'm going back and adding these shadows I just told you I forgot in the beginning, just right there on the right leg part. Just picking out a nice shadow color there and doing these recessed shades that I forgot in the beginning. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Here you can see the result in comparison to what has been done before. Demon Forge, I hope you're a good sport about it. Have a great day on Ask for Critic.